Hey, everybody, Bethany Dotson, relationship coach and trauma sensitive yoga therapist for high achieving women who struggle to have healthy relationships, whether it's emotional unavailability, um, getting out of a long, unhealthy, or even narcissistic relationship and trying to date again, or learning how to attract a healthy partner. So, today, I want to speak about a concept that I see quite frequently, and it's taking a lot of time off dating. And I just got off the phone with somebody who fell into this camp. So I might reference that story for a second. But taking a lot of time off dating, like many years, no dating, nothing to work on yourself. Is that actually healing? Or is that a form of procrastination and really a form of self protection? So, if you hop on live, say hello. Feel free to ask me a question if something piques your interest. If you catch this on replay, also hit hashtag replay. So, I want to talk about two main points here. Usually, uh, when people exit, especially a narcissistic relationship, your body is traumatized, your subconscious mind is full of negative limiting beliefs. You don't sometimes believe a healthy relationship is possible for you, and there's a perception out there that it's going to take a very long time to undo the damage that was made by your ex. And this is sometimes true if you try to heal on your own without any kind of professional help, which I don't recommend. Or it can be true if you kind of get into the wrong help. And the wrong help might be, not doing a lot of research, not doing your homework or your due diligence, going to a therapist that you're not super crazy about, or going to a therapist who isn't trauma informed, and you spend most of your sessions talking about your ex. And so people can kind of get stuck in living in the past, talking about their ex, talking about what happened, talking about how it took them so long to finally leave, took them so long to get over it. And a lot of people will get hung up on the past. And what happens when you talk about the past is that your body has a response, a chemical response to that. And when your body has a chemical response to you talking about your ex, or thinking about the past, or whatever the case may be, it reinforces the patterning in your brain. So your brain has been conditioned from a bad relationship or a series of bad relationships. You're not getting your needs met. You don't feel safe in relationship. And the more you revisit that and talk about that in the rearview mirror, the more it anchors that pattern. And this is what we know in trauma research. So sometimes people could get stuck for many years, analyzing it and talking about it and learning about it. But they're not actually getting better because they're not actually doing things that are challenging their comfort zone, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. So when the two things that must happen in order to break out of a very long dry spell, there's a few things actually of dating and going many years without any dates, or maybe you go on a few dates here and there, but it doesn't feel, you don't have any chemistry with these people, or you just feel completely exhausted and turned off by the whole dating thing. You want to have a healthy relationship. You want to have, someone in your life that you feel connected to and that you feel safe with. But after all of your history, you're not quite sure it's possible for you. And the number one thing that has to shift is that you have to learn to be very comfortable with being uncomfortable, meaning discomfort. Now, I want to dial this in a little bit more, because a lot of people will say, well, no, I've been really uncomfortable. I was in a really unhealthy marriage. That was uncomfortable. I was in a really, my parents are unhealthy. That was uncomfortable for me. I've got friends that are like, they violate my boundaries. That's uncomfortable for me. But that's not really the type of discomfort I'm talking about. What has happened to you has probably been uncomfortable, but the catch is that you've normalized it. And I want you to really understand that point. You've normalized other people's bad behavior. In order to stay in an unhealthy relationship, You have to ignore your instincts. You have to ignore the signals your body is giving you and bury your intuition. And when you do that for a prolonged period of time, you retrain your brain to think that that's okay. Literally, the area in your brain that is responsible for fight or flight, or looking for threats, or looking for other people, their facial expressions, or is my ex mad today? Is he, we're texting about the kids, and is he angry? Like, you are going to be a little bit more jumpy, prone to anxiety. And the part of your brain that's responsible for tuning into your intuition, which is called your insular cortex, turns off. I don't even know if it's necessarily turns all the way off, but there's a lot less activity because you've trained yourself by normalizing bad behavior because you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to face the consequences, whatever it is. That becomes like kind of a habit, like a neural habit for you. And so when people exit a long relationship and they take many, 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 many years without dating, that habit doesn't go away by itself. It certainly doesn't go away when you simply talk about it. You might get some clarity, you might get a little bit of freedom and some space from that habit. But what I find most of the time is that it reemerges in another relationship down the line. I've talked to many people who've taken years off of dating, thinking that they were doing all of the right things to heal themselves, but then got into another relationship that was still emotionally unavailable, still basically a repeat of what they had done in the past. So you have to, if you want to have a healthy relationship, there are two critical things that must happen within you. And it doesn't look like taking a lot of time off dating, although part of that could, if you just got out of a divorce or you're just out of a relationship, I recommend, of several months to a year. But beyond that, I'm not quite sure how helpful it is. So the two things that need to happen, you have to be very, very comfortable with rejection. What really happens when people take many years off of dating is that they're protecting themselves from more pain. They're protecting themselves from feeling rejection, from feeling abandoned, from possibly repeating another mistake. That's usually what's happening. They take a lot of time off dating, and during that time, they might nosedive into their career. They might stay chronically busy to avoid feeling lonely. But after a while, that feeling of something's wrong with me that they kind of have going on in their subconscious mind, like lurking in the back of their mind, tends to grow a little bit more loud. It grows stronger. And the more time they take off not being in relationship, the more kind of uncomfortable they even feel with going into dating or going into relationship or going down that road again. Even though their heart wants that, the actions that they're doing and the decisions that they're making every single day don't support that. So you have to learn how to be comfortable with rejection. And it's probably the thing that most people want to avoid the most. You have to put yourself in scenarios where rejection is a very strong possibility. So, and the second thing is learning to be comfortable with being vulnerable. So Brené Brown defines vulnerability as three key components: taking a risk, being uncertain, and having emotional nakedness, being emotionally exposed. So you have to feel that you can take a risk. You have to feel, you have to be okay with feeling uncertain, and you have to feel okay being emotionally exposed. And if you have had a long pattern of feeling like you're not getting your needs met in love, or you tend to attract emotionally unavailable people, you're choosing that, or whatever the case may be, learning to train yourself to feel emotionally exposed, to feel uncertain, and to feel like you're taking a risk with that person is challenging when you have a long history and a lot of reference points of maybe doing that but getting burned, or maybe doing that but then getting gaslit, or maybe doing that but then getting manipulated in some way, and contorting yourself and bending over backwards to try to make a bad relationship work. So you have to be comfortable with rejection and get a lot of practice with rejection. You also have to get comfortable with being vulnerable and sharing your true feelings, sharing who you really are. One of the exercises, and this is what I work on with my clients when they come to me, because they have a lot of practice being cut off from the possibility of rejection because they don't share their true feelings, or being cut off from being vulnerable because they've learned, unfortunately, that being who they really are, or sharing themselves fully, or being vulnerable, has been unsafe in past relationships. And so we can't carry that behavior and that programming forward if we expect to have a healthy relationship. So one of the ways that I help my clients overcome this first is through some trauma recovery work. But the second way is through a practice where I invite them to share a secret, a deep, dark secret, a secret that they would be, ashamed if somebody found that out about them, with a few people in their life, that it makes them a little nervous, a little scared to share that. But the value in doing this is that, number one, it brings them face to face with their own fears of rejection so that they can work through that process mindfully and consciously. And it brings them face to face with their own fears of vulnerability, and kind of like exposure therapy in a way. And when you learn to kind of lean into scenarios and use your own discernment of when it feels safe to be vulnerable with someone, and you actually take the action and are vulnerable, and you set yourself up for possible rejection, what often happens is that process in and of itself builds confidence. So you have to be repeatedly putting yourself in scenarios where you're going to face rejection. You cannot be afraid of rejection if you want to have a healthy relationship, and if you've never had a healthy relationship. This is especially true. You have to learn to get over your fear of rejection, and you have to learn how to be vulnerable and be okay with that, and learn how to cultivate that safety within yourself first, so that no matter what happens on your dating journey or friendship journey, because oftentimes the same patterns that show up in your dating life show up in your work life, show up with friends, that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to handle whatever the aftermath or whatever consequences, or even the great benefits that come from being vulnerable. So if you've taken a lot of time off dating, some of it may have been to heal yourself, but oftentimes if you've taken many, many years off of dating, or it's been many, many years since your last relationship, and you haven't really gone on any dates at all or dated anybody in that interim, it's usually because you're procrastinating and avoiding the feeling of being rejected or feeling abandoned, or you're self-protecting yourself, you're guarding yourself, which is it's understandable. But if you want a healthy relationship, that behavior and those choices are not going to lead you to a healthy partner. What often happens when people date from this place is that they attract partners who are guarded, who are protecting themselves. And that looks like commitment issues, looks like somebody who's a workaholic. It looks like somebody who is emotionally unavailable, somebody who's even a little bit more, unhealthy than their last partner. So you have to do that deep work of healing the belief systems, healing the trauma from your past, and your body holds on to that trauma, right? It's not something that you can analyze and talk your way through. Your body memorizes that. So learning to get comfortable with rejection and get comfortable with feeling vulnerable are the two first steps. And then secondly, you have to learn to train your body to feel safe in that process. Oftentimes what I see is that the women that I talk to, the women that I work with, they want to have a healthy relationship. But they start to date somebody who feels healthy, and then for whatever reason, it doesn't feel right. It feels weird. It feels like, I don't really know. and they'll start to push that person away, or they'll start to find reasons why that person might not be a good fit for them. And this is an unconscious pattern to keep you safe, because on some level, your subconscious mind doesn't feel quite safe with that yet. And usually when your subconscious doesn't feel safe, it's because you're still holding on to some trauma from your past. And what we know in research is that your body memorizes a traumatic event or a series of traumatic events that happen over a long period in a relationship. Your body, has kind of an emotional template that it feels comfortable with in relationship. So if you have some, kind of roller coaster, your relationships are a little chaotic, that's kind of the set template that your body is comfortable with. And again, this isn't something you might consciously be aware of. But when you learn how to retrain your brain out of kind of a fight or flight programming or a chaotic programming using a trauma-informed method, and learn how to retrain your body to feel safe with receiving. Most women find themselves, and men find themselves in unhealthy relationships because it feels actually safer to be the caretaker, to be the fixer, to be the cheerleader, to be the project managing mommy of an unavailable partner, because that gives her a sense of control. And what's really happening is that she's confusing that feeling of control and being needed with love. And that's really not, because the person that she's falling for is not truly capable of loving her, because on many ways he's not truly capable of loving himself. So it becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy. So learning to feel safe in your body is the second big point with dating and relationship. Learning to reconnect, because again, if you've spent many years in an unhealthy relationship, or a lot of time in unhealthy relationships, you've had to cut off access to your intuition in order to stay. You've had to shut down your heart essentially to stay in those types of relationships. And after so many years of doing that, oftentimes what I find happening is that people continue to do that pattern unconsciously because it's what they know. So just to quickly recap, if you've taken many, many years off of dating to heal yourself, while some time off to heal yourself is warranted, if it's been more than a couple of years and you've gone on no dates and you've nosedived into your career, what's really happening likely is that you are procrastinating. You don't want to feel rejected. You don't want to meet more pain. You don't want to potentially fall for another bad person. What's really at the bottom of that usually is you're really afraid of having a successful relationship. Your subconscious mind believes on some level that an unhealthy relationship is safer because it absolves you from fully being abandoned or rejected, or whatever twisted way that your subconscious mind is believing. So usually that long period is kind of a procrastination avoidance tactic. I don't want to let anybody get super close. I don't want to make this wrong choice again. I don't want to feel rejected. And in order to have what you want, which is probably a healthy relationship, you have to throw yourself in scenarios where rejection is going to be possible. You have to throw yourself into learning to be vulnerable again. And when people exit an unhealthy relationship or they're trying to find themselves, usually the opposite happens. They try to control their life even more, and unfortunately grow stagnant in that process because they're not really living. They're just kind of controlling and managing their situation, their career, what's happening at home, but they're not fully living. And in order to have what you want, you have to learn how to fully live again. Be vulnerable. Be that every day. Embrace rejection. Not be afraid of it. Have that pillar of strength within you, that fulfillment within you, that you know that no matter what happens, you're still going to be okay. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't fully have that when they start dating again and they meet someone who is also doesn't have their container full of themselves, yet. They're still, avoidant in some way or whatever. So that's the first thing, embracing vulnerability, embracing rejection. And then the second piece is learning to retrain your body to feel safe with receiving. If you have been through a narcissistic relationship or a relationship where, you were kind of you're codependent, your body has memorized subconsciously that template. And whoever you meet who might be healthy, who goes against that, it's going to feel awkward for a little while. And learning to train yourself to be safe with receiving, safe with allowing love in, safe with trusting yourself, safe with being vulnerable, safe with speaking up, safe with speaking your truth and facing rejection. You kind of have to train your body to be on board with that, because if you've cut yourself off to fit into a bad relationship, you've also cut yourself off from feeling the instincts and the intuition in your body. So using a trauma-informed method is the best way, in my experience, to do that, because what happens in these types of relationships is complex or relational trauma. And while talking about it can give you clarity, it usually doesn't address the trauma piece that's stuck in your body that might create anxiety, that might look like overworking or overachieving. I have to do a lot in order to feel enough, that kind of behavior. So if you're professional, if you're single, if you want some help in learning how to undo what's often a lifelong pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable partners, and learning to be first and foremost for yourself emotionally available, and learn to overcome your fears of rejection, learn to overcome the pattern of kind of closing yourself off, or maybe isolating, or kind of being the lone hero, as someone today put it in her life. If you're ready to let that go and truly open yourself to a healthy relationship, and open yourself to the journey of experiencing dating in a healthy way, when you have only experienced heartache, and not trusting yourself, then book a free breakthrough call and we'll see if we can help you heal that pattern within yourself, and become that confident version of you, that open version of you, that's not holding herself back in the area of relationship. So if you're single, professional, you've had some therapy, you've gotten some clarity there, but it's not getting you all the way to the finish line, you're still struggling to date or have a healthy relationship, go to bethanydotson.com/talk, and we will walk you through whatever blocks might be in your way. If we can help you, we'll talk about the details of working together and what that process looks like. So again, bethanydotson.com/talk. If you have questions, please drop them below, and I will see you soon on another broadcast. Take care.